Throughout human history, war has been an intrinsic part of our existence. It is a defining trait deeply etched into our nature since the earliest days when humans first stood upright, crafted tools, and built civilizations. The struggles for land, power, resources, or even mere survival have driven humanity into an endless cycle of conflict, shaping the course of our past and the world we live in today. And from ancient times, 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, when primitive tribes still roamed the earth, blood was spilled in the name of greed, brutality, and an insatiable thirst for conquest, wiping out 95% of the male population. It was not a plague. It was not a natural disaster. It was a war of unprecedented scale, where nearly all men vanished. Among the countless wars in human history, there is one mysterious ancient event that has left scientists astounded. A tragedy unrecorded in any historical document, yet its traces remain deeply embedded within our very DNA. Scientists believe that during this period, humans had moved beyond small, scattered hunter-gatherer groups and had begun settling down, developing agriculture and forming larger communities. However, this progress came with devastating consequences. When researchers analyzed the Y chromosome, passed exclusively from father to son, they discovered a drastic decline in genetic diversity. This indicates that the male population at the time was suddenly and almost entirely wiped out. Genetic studies reveal staggering statistics. 95% of the male population on Earth vanished within a remarkably short period. The male-to-female ratio may have reached 1 to 17, meaning only one man survived for every 17 women. Meanwhile, mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to offspring, remained unaffected, indicating that women were largely spared from this catastrophe. That's not all. Archaeological excavations have uncovered numerous mass graves, where evidence of violence is etched into every skeleton. These findings not only confirm a period of intense warfare, but also reveal a brutal truth. Stone Age warfare was not just about victory. It was about the complete eradication of the defeated. The Neolithic tragedy may have been humanity's first global war, but it was far from the last. Humans have never truly abandoned war. We have merely changed the way we wage it. What happened 7,000 years ago was not just an isolated event. It was a reflection of the inherent violence that has always been a part of human nature. Have we progressed, or just become more efficient killers? Has humanity truly changed, or has our warlike nature merely been masked by the veneer of civilization? Perhaps Albert Einstein's words serve as the most chilling warning of all. I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. To seek the answer, let us turn back the pages of history and uncover the brutal nature of mankind. As scientists studied the genome of modern humans, they uncovered a shocking mystery, an event that forever altered the genetic structure of humanity. Around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, a genetic bottleneck occurred. But what makes it truly bizarre is that it only affected men, while women continued to reproduce as usual. To understand this anomaly, we first need to examine how DNA is passed down through generations. Humans have two key genetic systems that allow scientists to trace our lineage: the Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. The Y chromosome exists only in males and is passed directly from father to son without recombining with other chromosomes. This means that if a group of men is wiped out, their Y lineage disappears permanently, with no chance of recovery. In contrast, mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, is inherited exclusively from the mother and is unaffected by the father's genetic material. If a catastrophe impacted both men and women, we would see a significant reduction in mtDNA diversity. However, in this case, only Y chromosome diversity plummeted, while mitochondrial DNA remained stable, pointing to a selective collapse of the male population rather than a widespread disaster affecting both sexes. What truly stunned scientists was that when analyzing the modern human genome, they discovered that the Y chromosome had undergone a massive collapse, almost as if it had been completely reset, while mitochondrial DNA retained its full diversity. This scenario could only occur if nearly all men were wiped out, leaving only a small fraction to pass on their genes, while women remained largely unaffected. Such a drastic event suggests not a natural disaster or disease, but a selective extinction of males, raising profound questions about the brutal forces that shaped early human history. Scientific studies have revealed astonishing figures. Dr. Melissa Wilson Sayers, University of Arizona, 2015, found that around 95% of men from that time period disappeared. A 2018 study from Stanford University, led by Dr. Tianchen Zeng, confirmed that between 4,000 and 7,000 years ago, Y chromosome diversity plummeted by a factor of 17, an unprecedented genetic collapse. Most remarkably, this genetic bottleneck was not localized. It occurred simultaneously across continents, affecting Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, and North Africa. This was a millennia-long event that reshaped human populations on a massive scale. At its peak, the male-to-female ratio may have reached 1 to 17, meaning only one man survived for every 17 women. Such extreme gender imbalance could not have been caused by a random natural disaster. Instead, the evidence suggests a catastrophic, widespread conflict, one that selectively wiped out the male population across vast regions of the world. If this were a disease, it would have affected both men and women equally. If it were a natural disaster, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or a famine, it would not have selectively targeted one gender. So what really happened? Some scientists have proposed a chilling hypothesis. Could this have been the result of a genocidal war between ancient tribes? A war where the victors didn't just defeat their enemies, but wiped out their bloodline entirely? If a tribe was defeated, all its men would be killed, while the women were taken as slaves or wives by the victors. If this repeated for hundreds of years on a large scale, the Y chromosome would be reset, leaving only a few surviving genetic lines. Many mass graves dating to the same period as this event have been discovered, where male bones were shattered, while women appear to have been taken away. Talheim Death Pit, Germany, 5000 BCE. 34 skeletons, all adult males, were executed with fatal head wounds. No defensive injuries were found, suggesting they may have been killed while tied up or fleeing. Schlitz, Austria, 5000 BCE. Over 200 people were killed, while young women appear to have been taken away. Many male bodies had their limbs severed, showing they may have been tortured before death. Herxheim, Germany, 5300 to 4950 BCE, over 1,000 skeletons with signs of decapitation, many bones dismembered, skulls split in half, and long bones crushed to extract marrow. This may be evidence of a cannibalistic ritual or systematic torture. Many skulls were arranged in circular formations, possibly as part of a skull sacrifice ritual. Some bones showed signs of being cooked, suggesting large-scale cannibalism may have occurred. Throughout human history, war has never been just a struggle for survival. It has also been a tool for power, territorial expansion, and social dominance. Around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, as humans transitioned from small hunter-gatherer groups to larger, settled communities, conflicts evolved as well. Tribes were no longer just battling nature. They began fighting each other for control over resources, land, and people. During this period, most primitive societies were organized under a patrilineal lineage system, where men controlled resources, women, and inheritance. This led to a brutal reality. When war broke out between tribes, the victors didn't just defeat their enemies, they sought to erase their bloodline entirely, to ensure that no one could seek revenge or reclaim power in the future. All men from the defeated tribe were exterminated, while women and young girls were taken as slaves or wives by the victors. As a result, entire male genetic lineages vanished, while mitochondrial DNA from women continued to be passed down through generations. However, Stone Age warfare was not just about territorial disputes or access to water. It was a true hunt. While predators in the animal kingdom kill only to survive, humans hunted and slaughtered their own kind not just for survival, but for power, land, status, and women. Hunting for food is an animal instinct, but hunting one's own kind for dominance is uniquely human. This instinct was not confined to prehistoric times. It has persisted throughout human history. The great empires of later centuries also waged wars to conquer, exterminate, and assimilate their enemies. Whether in Stone Age tribes or modern nations, the law of the strong remains unchanged. The victors live, while the defeated are erased. And from thousands of years ago to the present day, humanity has never truly stopped killing its own. The Neolithic era, 10,000 to 2000 BCE, marked a turning point in the history of warfare. Previously, conflicts were isolated skirmishes between small hunter-gatherer groups. But by this period, warfare had become systematic and organized, no longer just about survival, but about expansion and domination. As human communities grew larger, the need to expand territory, control resources, and maintain power led to the rise of bloodier, more sophisticated wars than ever before. Alongside the evolution of warfare came rapid advancements in weapons and tactics. Instead of relying solely on brute strength and instinctive strikes, humans of this era learned to craft and wield weapons specifically designed for killing, execution, and population control. Archaeological studies reveal that this was the period when weapons were no longer just tools for hunting. They had become the primary instruments of tribal conflict, allowing humans to eliminate their enemies with maximum efficiency. One of the most common and deadly weapons of this era was the stone axe, and later, the copper axe. Originally designed as tools for labor, axes quickly became highly effective close combat weapons, allowing warriors to split skulls or sever limbs with ease. Stone axes were crafted from flint or basalt, materials with high hardness, enabling them to be sharpened to cut through flesh and bone. As humans entered the metalworking age, copper axes emerged, featuring sharper, more durable blades, significantly increasing their lethality on the battlefield. Findings suggest that axes were not only used in combat, but also served as instruments of execution. Talheim Death Pit, Germany, 5000 BCE. Many skulls were shattered by axe blows, indicating victims were likely killed with fatal strikes to the head. Durrington Walls, England, circa 2500 BCE. Some skeletons show deep cuts across the spine, suggesting they may have been executed by axe after tribal conflicts. Beyond being a close combat weapon, the axe became a symbol of dominance, used to eliminate enemies completely. Warfare in this era did not stop at battlefield slaughter. Archaeological evidence suggests that weapons were also used for ritual sacrifices and the torture of enemies. Stone knives and cutting blades, originally tools for hunting and food preparation, show signs of being repurposed for brutal rituals performed on prisoners or defeated foes. These findings hint at a darker side of early warfare, where violence was not only a means of survival, but also a ritualistic display of power and dominance. There were two common types of combat knives during this era: flint dagger, razor sharp, capable of slashing skin and severing tendons with ease, used in both combat and butchery. Obsidian blade, found in the Middle East and Mesoamerica, with a sharpness comparable to modern surgical scalpels, capable of slicing through flesh and bone with extreme precision. Findings from major excavation sites reveal cut marks on human bones, suggesting torture or ritual sacrifices. Herxheim, Germany, 5300 BCE. Many skeletons show deep cuts on the ribs and spine, indicating victims may have been disemboweled alive as part of gruesome sacrificial rituals. Cut marks on both human and animal bones suggest that cannibalism may have been practiced. especially on war captives. Knives and cutting blades were not just instruments of killing. They were weapons of torture, symbols of power, and tools of fear. The bow and arrow was a revolutionary weapon that allowed warriors to attack from a distance, minimizing their risk of injury in direct confrontations. Bows of this era were simple, yet highly effective. Wooden bows with plant fiber strings, capable of shooting arrows tens of meters away. Sharp stone arrowheads, some designed with serrated edges to create deeper wounds and cause excessive bleeding. Findings confirm that the bow and arrow was a widely used killing tool during this period. Talheim Death Pit, Germany, 5000 BCE. Many victims were killed by arrows, with arrowheads still lodged in their ribs and skulls. Nataruk, Kenya, 10,000 BCE, one of the oldest recorded battles, where attackers used bows to strike victims from a distance before engaging in close combat. Bows allowed warriors to eliminate enemies without direct contact, while also spreading fear, as death could come suddenly from afar. The Neolithic era was not only marked by brutal wars, but also by a significant decline in average male lifespan. The rise of large-scale conflicts meant that men were no longer just hunters or laborers. They became war resources, constantly recruited and sacrificed in tribal battles. They went to war at a young age, and few ever lived to see middle age. Archaeological data reveals a grim reality. The average male lifespan ranged from 20 to 33 years. Most men never lived past 30, primarily due to war, violence, and harsh living conditions. Women generally had longer lifespans, possibly because they did not fight, and were often spared in conflicts to ensure population continuity. Archaeological evidence supports this theory. Schletz, Austria, 5000 BCE. A mass grave revealed that many young men were executed, some beheaded or had their hands severed, indicating systematic execution. Data from Neolithic cemeteries shows that few men lived past 40, while some women reached 50 or older. This supports the idea that men weren't just killed in battle, but also systematically executed after tribal wars. The extremely low male lifespan reveals that this was a time of unprecedented violence, where war was not just a struggle for dominance, but a brutal mechanism of genetic selection, systematically wiping out nearly all men who failed in the fight for survival. If you were a man in this era, your chances of growing old were almost non-existent. This event fundamentally reshaped human genetic diversity, especially among men. Modern genetic studies reveal that Y chromosome diversity is significantly lower than mitochondrial DNA, proving that countless male bloodlines were wiped out, leaving only a few surviving lineages that dominate today's population. This means that most modern men may share a common ancestor with the warriors who managed to survive this ancient massacre. As a result, male genetics became more uniform, while female genetic diversity remained intact, a clear sign of the severe gender imbalance that followed this cat. This war did not just alter genetics, it became the catalyst for a complete transformation in human society. Previously, power was dictated by individual strength or small skirmishes between groups, where personal combat skills determined survival. But after the Great Purge, those who survived were not just the strongest warriors, they were the best strategists, the masters of organized warfare. Tribes evolved from loosely structured groups into highly organized systems. Power became centralized, controlled by strong leaders and their armies. War was no longer random skirmishes, it became a tool for control, expansion, and dominance. This paved the way for the first power hierarchies, where a few dominant male bloodlines consolidated control, laying the foundation for early civilizations. Even as modern civilization has advanced, the traces of this ancient event remain deeply woven into the way societies are structured today. Most ancient civilizations, from Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome to China and India, were patriarchal, with men dominating power structures. This may be a direct consequence of the Neolithic massacre, where only a few male bloodlines survived and went on to control entire societies. The rise of powerful empires after this era suggests that humanity had mastered large-scale warfare. War evolved from small tribal battles to grand conquests, fueled by the desire to expand and regulate populations. Studies show that about 60% of European men can trace their ancestry back to a common male ancestor from the Neolithic period. Some regions still exhibit severe Y chromosome diversity loss compared to female genetic diversity, indicating the long-term genetic impact of this event. Even after thousands of years, the Great Massacre continues to shape the genetic and social structure of modern humanity. Looking back at history, we can see that war has never truly ended. It has merely changed its form. 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, humans butchered each other with stone axes and spears. Today, we have ballistic missiles, drones, and nuclear weapons. Ancient tribes wiped out their enemies' men to consolidate power. Modern nations continue to fight over territory, resources, and political influence, not always through direct conflict, but through proxy wars, cold wars, and armed conflicts. The methods may have changed, but the underlying drive for power and domination remains the same. Human history is a cycle of conflict, destruction, reconstruction, and yet more conflict. But we have never truly learned from the past. Stone Age tribes hacked each other apart with axes for survival. Today, we hunt each other with missiles and advanced weaponry, driven by concepts like strategic interests and national security. We are following the same path as our ancestors, except now, the scale of destruction is exponentially larger. One day, humanity may face a new great massacre, but this time, not with stone axes, but with bombs capable of wiping out entire nations. If history is a cycle, then the question is not, will war happen? But rather, when will the next war begin?